McGregor has come out. He says he wants to fight 3 more times this year. So that would mean do the Chandler fight and have 3 more, get a total of 4 fights. So who would you give him? All right, there's a fun topic. Who would you give Conor? If you've got the power, and you might as well book him in advance. Like Conor's not a situation like everybody else that's not named Conor, where you have to see the outcome of the previous fight. The outcome of the previous fight wouldn't have anything to do with who you would give Conor next, at least not up to this point in his career. So go ahead and book him. Go ahead and tell me who are the 2 guys you want to see him with. And I'll give you my answers. RDA, Colby Covington. And I don't do that with a great promotional push behind it. I give the RDA fight with heart. I think that RDA has had the hardest schedule of anyone that's ever done this sport. I really think that. And he was supposed to have the Conor fight. He signed for it. He trained for it. He prepared. In fact, at the time, he was the one putting up the belt. It would have been for his championship. That fell apart. Insert Eddie Alvarez. The rest is history. RDA never got that match. So I would put RDA on, right? If I had the power to do this, I would put RDA on. And I've heard a lot of other people put Max. I don't have the problem with the Blessed Express. Plus, if it's going to be for a title, I think that it is more obtainable to do it for a BMF title than an undisputed title, just for example. But I feel like the people that are saying Max are coming at it from a competitive standpoint. Just, this is the competition. Get Max back in there. He fought Conor once. It was before he was mad. Let him get his due. I don't disagree with any of that. Like, that would be a really good night of business. It just wouldn't offer parity. And if I had the power to make fights for Conor, I would for sure have parity. Like Dustin Poirier versus Conor, that's great. I would really enjoy that. But if I had the power to make his next fights, and it was going to happen, like this magic wand type scenario, I wouldn't put him in there with Dustin because I've only seen that. In fact, I've seen that 3 times. So, and Colby, I just think it's a lot of fun. I mean, I'll just leave it at that. But before we go down the road of who we should do for Conor, why is Conor saying it? It's one of these things, like if you're ever going to study the business of this sport, which so few do, there for sure are not 10 people that are actively in MMA that study the business of the sport. For sure there's not 10. In fact, I only know of 3. And if you are going to do that, is that something that you find interesting, which I do? Every little move that Conor makes is something to be stared at. And you then wonder why he did it. And most guys, if you were to ask them how many times you want to fight this year, they would throw an answer out. They might even throw out some names. But Conor doesn't do that. So, I ask you again, when Conor comes out and he does an interview and says he wants the Chandler fight and 2 more, I know earlier I said it was 3 more, my producers corrected me. Wants 3 fights this year. Why would he be doing it? Well, let's try to put it in conjunction. And all we're going to do is a guess, but I'll lay out mine. 2 days ago, it gets revealed that Conor's got 2 fights left on his contract. And standard, what would happen is an athlete would be in a renegotiation with the company if the company wanted to keep that athlete around with 1 fight left. And it's a very exciting day. Like in your whole career, and this is if you have a good career, you're going to have that meeting 3 times. 3 times you'll be able to sit down. You'll hope to have some level of leverage. You'll hope that the timing works out. Oh, by the way, it's a huge gift. Like when they present you with what their offer is for a new contract, it always escalates. It always goes up. You don't know how much or where it's going to be. It's just a really fun day. That's all I'm suggesting for you. Conor revealed to us that he's in that spot now, that they picked up the phone, that they've called him, that they're starting that dialogue. Oh, and by the way, he has 2 fights left. So, why is Conor saying he wants to fight 3 times? Is it because he does? Maybe. I'll take you back to a time. I think it was 2020. COVID made me throw things off. I used to be real good with this, but it was December. Conor comes out, does an interview out of nowhere and says, I'm going to be fighting in Vegas next month, which meant January. The problem? The UFC didn't have a show. They didn't have a camera. You talk about lights, camera, action. They had none of the above. They scrambled, put it together, insert Donald Cerrone, 170-pound weight class so that nobody had to figure out how to make weight on that short of notice, and sold out overnight. from when they announced we're going to have a show with Conor McGregor to the next day, over, it was gone. You couldn't even get in. Tickets were gone. But I bring you to that time phrase. Conor looked amazing. He stops Cowboy. I mean, this is like a hero moment if there ever was one. If there was a way to raise a guy up, or what a little kid would dream of getting in this business so that maybe it could happen to him someday, this was the moment. It was unbelievable. And Conor stated to anyone that would listen, I want to fight 3 more times this year. That would be a total of 4 fights. Guys are guaranteed 3. Conor had been giving us 2. I mean, I'm just putting this in perspective for you. Like, it was a really big deal, but he said he wanted 3 more. Oh, by the way, it was January. Like, to get a guy 3 more fights in a year when you did one in January, it worked out. With the calendar, it worked. You could do it. And I think if we were to look back at any mistake that we as an industry made, it's that we didn't take Conor up on that. I would think there's always stuff behind the scenes that you don't see or don't know about, but I would think that that's a mistake to not use Conor when Conor's healthy and says that he wants to do it. And you know what predicated this? There was things going about the tabloids of bad habits or activities that Conor was finding himself in. And he got asked that question directly by Ariel Helwani, and Conor didn't answer it. But he did tell Ariel, it wouldn't confirm that he had done it, but he did tell Ariel, not doing it now. And then he went a little bit further. And he said, and I won't, as long as I'm staying active. As long as I got fights and I'm in camp and I got to focus and my eye on the ball, which is another reason he stated that he wanted a total of 4 fights. It was for different reasons, but it wasn't totally dissimilar to what Volkanovski shared with us after his second fight with Islam. So we didn't take him up on it, though. And I have to use that. I have to use that piece as evidence. Like Conor coming out and saying, I want more fights. Before we all get excited and think it's going to happen, we got to look back and go, okay, he said this before. Did he get them? No. And I don't know why he did it. I don't know why. But I can't help but look at his statement right now in conjunction with the idea that he's in contract renegotiations. I can't have that and not assume that it was part of the negotiation. I just can't. I can't hear that and assume that he's out there and wants to take on a full schedule and Conor's back and go ahead and book him. I just can't. I think it's part of the play, and I don't know what part of the play is. And by the way, I don't put it down. I'm sharing with you. If you study the business, which people don't, this is a play of some sort. Now, it could be the very obvious one, and you should not take it with a grain of salt. It's very straightforward. Conor is saying he wants to fight multiple times this year because Conor would like to fight multiple times this year. Like, that's certainly on the table. I just don't think it's the reason. I don't. He doesn't have a weight class. He's apparently fighting Chandler at 170. There's been some reports that says like 168. I don't really know where that came from, but I also don't know what difference it makes. If you're 255 pounders and you're not weighing at 55, it doesn't matter if you weigh at 191. If you're not going to affect the class and the rankings there, like, what difference does it make? So, but I say that to you, if you're trying to line up Conor, you wouldn't even know where to start. Don't even know what weight class he is. In fact, to go back to what Conor said, he said he would like to do a fight at the Sphere opposite Nate Diaz. And he would like to do that on Mexican Independence Day. Now, that is very consistent. Conor has constantly called out Diaz, and he's constantly said he wants to fight at the Sphere. I don't know the relevance to the Sphere. I just know he's been consistent. But if it was Conor versus Nate on Mexican Independence Day, a show being done by a North American company in North America, and you didn't feature a Mexican in the main event, I don't know. I feel like it's probably not a likely thing to happen. But if it is something that's important to Conor and he's in a new contract negotiation, he could definitely get it. But what advantage and or power would Conor have by staying active, by staying busy, creating the illusion while in a negotiation that he wants to stay active and he wants to stay busy? That's the real question. And if you're studying these types of things, it's important, even if a hypothesis, but it's important that you make one.